Welcome into another episode of Between the Horns. I'm JB Long, and if you're watching live on our social and digital channels, good morning. If you're catching the podcast version, hope you're having a great day wherever you might be, and thank you for spending part of it with us. I'm joined by team reporter Serena Morales, as always. Maurice Jones-Drew is here, and NFL Network's Andrew Siciliano, who apparently doesn't know how to take a screenshot with his computer. He had the cell phone out trying to get some material for his social media, I guess.
Put it on the Instagram story there. There you go.
Okay. All right. We'll send that all around. Hard to believe, everyone, that it's week 6. Here we are. The Rams are 4-1. They're heading to the Bay Area to begin division play, a Sunday night showdown against the 2-3 Niners. Before we go there, why don't we get some final thought on the win that was 30-10 in Washington? And Andrew, we haven't gotten your take on the Rams' 4th victory of the season, so we'll start with you.
Love what I saw from Aaron Donald and Troy Reeder, and love what I saw from a dominant defense. Obviously, the offense kind of hit a roadblock middle of the game, but that's, you guys know, that's when the rain started coming down as well. I like the way Cam Akers helped close the game out with that long 46-yard run. You go back to his first run of the first quarter, and then that 46-yarder. I think that's the Cam Akers they know, and that's the guy they drafted and want to see. A little concerned by the Fuller injury late. That's just a point in the game where that Redskins offense isn't doing anything horizontally. They're going side to side, and he just teed off on a guy much like Jalen Ramsey did on Golden Tate at the end of that game, and concerned about that. The oboe injury as well. They've been able to survive Kaiser, with these little injuries here or there, and hopefully they can still do that and survive moving forward. This is a little bit more of a test, but I don't know how much of a test. I know we'll get into that. I don't know how much of a test this is this week.
For me, I felt like the offense, even though they did lull in the middle of the game, they were very explosive against a very good Washington football team defense, right? And so that is like, okay, especially after coming off the Giants victory with lackluster performance, to go out there and put up points and run the ball the way they did and have explosive runs and passes against a defense that was pretty stingy was good. Defensively, again, one of the top in the league. And I know a lot of people are concerned with Oberonko's injury, but you have Terrell Lewis, who came out and did a good job. You're going to lean more on him anyways in those situations. He's going to have more pass rush situations. And I think the beauty of having depth and drafting well continues to be the riches for the Rams, because even though Fuller's down, Taylor Rapp steps in. Right. And we know how he's been in that communication. So having a lot of versatile players defensively, Jalen being able to play safety, match up on any guys, playing the nickel outside is going to allow this defense to continue to evolve. So, yes, it'll be a different challenge this week against the Niners, because it is Niners week, as DeMarco likes to say. But I think this team they're like clicking, and they're getting better, and they're improving each week. And that's the scary part about this Rams. They're not where they want to be right now.
I'm just excited that even guys, you didn't even mention him, but Darius Williams is like a name on this defense that it's like, oh man, forget the Jalen Ramseys and the Aaron Donalds, who, by the way, had 4 sacks in a game. I mean, let's bring up a guy who's been quietly, making a splash and kind of changing the momentum in the past 5 games this season with a guy like Darius Williams. So it's been great to see that the defense is kind of keeping us moving forward. And then again, you guys talked about it, but like the offense had a great start again. Goff is looking really strong, only sacked once. This O-line seems to be working well, right, JB?
They certainly are. And look, from a team perspective, they make it look easy to go on the road and get wins. And since 2017, they've done that better than any organization in the National Football League. But to have a stretch of 3 early kickoffs on the East Coast in 4 weeks, and to come out of this 4-1 as you start NFC West play, is not something to be taken lightly. I don't care whether you're playing the NFC East or whether you're playing the American East Conference. Like that's a job well done. Before we jump into this week's matchup, hey, we do want to pass along condolences to the family of Fred Dean. Hall of Famer, started for the Chargers and the Niners in the 70s, the 80s. He passed away last night at the age of 68. Some of you may have woken up to that news. So as we prepare to face the 49ers, wanted to make sure we mention that. All right, after missing a couple of weeks with a high ankle sprain, Jimmy G tried to return last week. It did not go well. He was benched at halftime as the Niners tried to play catch up. It makes me wonder, which Garoppolo will we see on Sunday in prime time? Anyone have thoughts?
I would be ready for C.J. Beathard in this game as well. if Aaron Donald, gets in Jimmy's face early and forces a bad throw or two, I would have to think that Kyle has a quick hook for him yet again. The interesting thing I know for us on the network is, yes, clearly Kyle wasn't the same, and he wasn't Jimmy wasn't the same, and he was getting nothing on those passes. But, this opens up the conversation again as to Shanahan's faith in the guy. He's clearly the number one, but he clearly was not right last week.
Yeah, I think, again, when you talk about the injuries that the Niners have faced from the receiver position, the quarterback position, they haven't had that time to kind of gel, right? And it seemed like Jimmy was off on some throws, throwing the ball high. It could have been the ankle, but a lot of it is the timing as well with the new receivers that have been hurt. If it's, Deebo Samuel with the foot injury or Ayuk with the hamstring, they were playing guys off the street for a while. Tavon Austin signed and got some money out of there because they were down so bad. So
Evan White was in uniform last week for Pete.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you're dealing with a lot of injuries. They can play a part of it, but also Jimmy G just being hurt, right? He may be a guy that can't play through injury, that he needs to be, close to 100% as possible. I think they're definitely, talking with some people in the Bay Area and some reporters up there that they're concerned. This game is a concerning game, but it's like I said, it's this rivalry being a part of the last couple years has shown me that it doesn't matter if it's the Chip Kelly 49ers who have 2 victories and they're both versus the Rams and they're happy about that, or if it's the Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan going back and forth, you have to put your best foot forward because they still have George Kittle. They still have Raheem Mostert. They still have guys offensively that can go. And then defensively, yes, they're banged up all through the secondary, and the secondary is giving up all these points. They still have guys that can rush the passer, and Fred Warner and company still there flying around. And we saw what he did last year late in the season to kind of, end the Rams' dreams of going to the playoffs.
If I'm a quarterback on the 49ers, I'm worried. Aaron Donald has 11 and a half sacks against the Niners. Whether you're CJ or you're Jimmy, their 2 wins this season have been against the Jets and the Giants. As a New Yorker, I don't want to brag about it, but there's nothing really great there in those 2 wins. So, we know covering the Rams, what an importance it is to have a healthy offensive line. And to your guys' point, if Jimmy G or CJ Beathard is not protected back there, you're going to get Aaron Donald in your face come Sunday.
And that's kind of what I was getting at. They're 29th in sacks allowed here. So the offensive and the defensive line, that's why this team is not the same team. Kyle Shanahan over the years has been able to replace skill players, MJD, because his faith in the system and it's going to work. And hey, run my damn play, it's going to work. But this team on the line is not the same, offensive or defensive. I mean, now Ziggy Ansah's out now on the defensive side. I mean, you sign a guy off the street and now he's out for the year. This is not the 49ers team from last year.
I may be slow to catch up to you guys on this one, but to me, they still are the 2019 49ers, if in name and uniform and logo only. I just think Shanahan is world class. Their run game is their strength. If time and score will let them play to it, stopping the run has not been the Rams' best attribute on defense. But I've just heard so much this week about the Rams' defensive improvements with the caveat, yeah, but you were playing Danny Dimes and the Giants. Yeah, but you were playing a Washington team in the rain. Like, those are 2 of the worst offenses in the league. To me, Shanahan and this 49ers group, despite the Garoppolo health concerns, is always going to pose a threat. And it's also intriguing to me because I think this specifically is the matchup Brandon Staley was hired to address, that he, created this role for Jalen Ramsey to uniquely match up with George Kittle and the threats that they present. Even that Leonard Floyd and Terrell Lewis were brought in as the bookends to combat, to make sure you funnel in that outside zone with some big, strong length on the edge. So I'm looking forward to seeing if it comes to fruition. And even if the Niners are not right, I think a dominant defensive performance would, I think, secure in the minds of the NFL people that the Rams are for real on defense this year.
It's a great point, JB. There's a reason these 2 coaches who know each other so well have split 6. They're 3-3 against each other. And I still go back to week 16 from last year, and I replayed that Saturday night game in my head 100 times. They get off the field on either of those 2 long third downs, the Rams that is, they're in the playoffs. Right. And don't tell me that game hasn't stuck in the back of Sean McVay's mind for a very long quarantined off season as well.
Yeah. All right, we got to move on to the offense because running back Cam Akers, he returned to the lineup last week, led the Rams in rushing, only 9 carries, but he finished with 61 yards, most of them coming off of that pretty 46-yard run in the fourth quarter. So Coach McVay has what he calls champagne problems, right? This is the first time you're really getting all 3 healthy backs because if you look back throughout the 5 games we played, Darrell Henderson had that hamstring injury. Then Cam Akers was out. Malcolm Brown had that pinky fracture. So your last game that they played, it was when you threw in Cam Akers later in the game just to see how he was doing. How's that rib injury, which sounds so painful. And yet, hey, they're all looking healthy. So this is kind of the first time you're seeing all 3 backs. MGD, I'm actually going to start with you because do you see 3 backs working well? I mean, can that work? How did it work for you?
Yeah, it could, Serena, it could definitely work. The Rams run the ball enough for it to work, and that's the most important thing. One of the top teams with rush attempts, which is important. I think that's kind of allowed them to carry 3 backs. Cam Akers may be the starter this week. He may not be. It may be Darrell Henderson, but each of them have a role. So, Cam Akers is very explosive. He runs hard. That run against the Washington football team shows that. Darrell Henderson, explosive out of the backfield. His runs against the Buffalo Bills and the Philadelphia Eagles, he's shown his explosive. And then Malcolm Brown is the guy that he's your emergency package. 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. I need you to step up and block. 4th and 1, short yardage, goal line. We're going to put you in those situations. And when you have 3 guys like that, normally you go with the hot hand. And so we've talked about this on our broadcast, JB, a ton. Week 1, Malcolm Brown was a hot hand. So he got 19 carries and he was running the ball, scored twice. Like that's what you're looking for. Week 2, it was Darrell Henderson. Big runs, was able to make some plays, hot hand, right? You put him out there. And so you want to continue to go with the hot hand. And it forces all 3 guys to be on their game at all time because you just never know what may happen. I think that is, yes, champagne problems, but also it's best for this football team because at the end of the day, you have a fresh body out there running the ball against a tired defense over and over and over again.
MJD, curious. Yeah, I like the fact that Akers was on the field there in the fourth quarter to help close out the game. I think that speaks well to his future and what they think of him. But do you think this works better here, that maybe it works better with the egos, that none of them has been a number 1 in the NFL? They were all number 1s in college, right? But that none of them has had that taste of being the lead guy in the NFL. So there isn't necessarily an ego issue now with this group.
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily an ego issue. It's more of there's been communication. It's been clearly communicated that this is a running back room, right? It's not Todd Gurley and others. And so when you communicate that and you coach that and you practice like that, where guys are all getting reps with the first team, guys are all getting reps with the second team, it kind of builds that room up. Now, when you talk about, like Todd Gurley, for example, Todd was only getting first team reps. You weren't going to put Todd with the number 2s. That just wasn't going to happen. And so that, yes, an ego or not, but I just think that it's been clearly communicated. And that's the most important thing. When you communicate with players and you tell them what's going to happen, then it happens, they begin to trust more and they begin to play harder.
Can I just say something on behalf of Darrell Henderson? I'm coming off a 2-touchdown game. I've done everything right. I'm not just the best back on this team. I'm the best back in the National Football League. Pro Football Focus says I'm the number 1 running back in all of football. What are we talking about here? Don't take my carries away. I'm coming off a 2-touchdown game. Give me more. I am the hot hand. Let's go.
I could see that argument too. He ran with good power too. I mean, he is killing guys in the hole. It's a different guy than the guy we saw a year ago. He's running confidently. I love the fact that he caught that pass for a touchdown. Wasn't the smoothest catch, but JB, look, that's what I think is great. And MJD, to your point, you can make a case for any of these 3 being the lead guy, right? If you take a little performance here, you can make that argument. But yeah, Darrell's probably been the most consistent in each of those games.
All right, time to reach into our fan mailbag. And this week, a question about the tight end production of Tyler Higbee. Basically, where has he been since his 3-touchdown game at Philadelphia?
Do you want me to take this one?
He clearly wants to.
I would say that it's ebb and flow with him and Gerald Everett. Like 1 week or 2 weeks, one guy's gonna have to be the blocker, and the other one's gonna get the ball. After that, it may flip. And so I think Gerald Everett, the first couple weeks, was the blocker. He was the one sacrificing his body on against the Eagles. He was the one making sure that Jared Goff had enough time to throw the ball to Higbee. And now the last couple weeks, it's been, okay, it's time to feed Gerald Everett a little bit, get him going. And, you know, they both can do very similar things in the passing game, but they have to take time. And I think eventually, you know, it's hard when you have Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Van Jefferson, those three backs, and now you have two tight ends to try to get the ball to as well. It's only one ball that can go around. So somebody's going to have to take it off, and it seems like it's been Higbee the last couple of weeks.
Especially when you're leading the NFC in rushing attempts.
Yeah.
Right? Like there aren't enough snaps in a month, much less a game, for all these guys to eat.
You also get a good feel, I think, from the opening drive. Like Gerald Everett had two plays dialed up for him on that opening drive last week against Washington. You're like, all right, it's going to be his game, right? And I cut him last week in fantasy, so I feel like.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Just a little nod for himself.
Yep.
But to Maurice's point about pass pro, though, like I know that no one's going to give New York and Washington a lot of respect, especially right now. But those defensive fronts were real. Like the NFC East is not down because of the defensive fronts in Philly, Dallas, New York, or Washington. And you go back and look at two of the key plays of that win over Washington, the Robert Woods 56-yard touchdown. Where's Tyler Higbee on that play? He and Cooper Kupp are doubling Ryan Kerrigan on the front side to make sure Goff has time to get it off. On the big Gerald Everett catch and run, again, he's in there on pass pro. So I agree with the point Maurice made. Like someone's got to extend that line a little bit, especially against the edge rush of Washington. And Tyler took on that role, even though it's not his best attribute, and he is a dynamic pass catcher.
And while we're on that, go back and watch the TV copy. I know you guys did. And there was a play, I rewound it 4 or 5 times, where it was Robert Woods lined up on the right side of the formation tight, and he actually came in motion towards the line and helped chip on Ryan Kerrigan. And if you turn the sound up, you just hear Robert like, ah! And he comes in and just cracks Ryan Kerrigan. And I can't remember the result of the play. It was a positive play, but you don't see that from many wide receivers. And those are the little things that so often get overlooked when we live in this fantasy stat world.
All right, we're going champagne problems from running backs to tight ends, and now we're doing our rapid fire because we've got more champagne problems. We got an O-line that's looking like it's 2018 form. Rapid fire. Is this O-line back to what we saw? I mean, to me, the 2018 theme of that O-line was consistency, right? And we see that theme kind of coming together if David Edwards can settle in this group.
Yeah, I think, you know, in order to get the consistency this year in 2020, you had to go through the trial and tribulations of 2019. A lot of rookies playing, a lot of guys playing out of position. And I think those problems became the good things that you have now. And so even when Joseph Noboom goes down, David Evers is able to step in, and it's like you don't miss a beat. And then to some people, JB, we've talked about this, the line may be better with him in right now because of his strength and his ability to be stronger against the bull rush. And so, you know, the offensive line, and this goes, and Andrew, you said, like, don't be ashamed. Like, listen, I know that you have to have a great offensive line in order to run the ball and throw the ball in this league. A lot of other teams don't know, and I'm not going to mention those names. But Sean McVay and Coach Cromer did a great job of just saying, you know what, we're going to invest in these dudes. We put the work in last year, and we believe in this offensive line, and they're proving them right.
Yeah, I think Austin Corbett's provided stability there as well. And everything you said about the injuries last year, getting David Edwards time and getting all these other, I think the depth is better too. I mean, you got to put Bobby Evans in there. His experience last year will be invaluable if you got to put him back in there. The offensive line has been great. There's a reason they're 4th in offensive efficiency right now. It's because that offensive line is playing as well as it has. And I'm not calling out Andrew Whitworth, quite the contrary, but Jared's pick to Kendall Fuller was the direct result of a rare pressure allowed there. I don't know if it went down on the stat sheet by Whitworth because he had a guy push back into Jared. Jared's operating better with a clean pocket. All quarterbacks do. This just in. Like, I'm so sick of this narrative. Well, Jared Goff can't do well against pressure. Show me a quarterback that does, with the kind of consistent pressure that he got last year, where there was always someone at his feet and he had to be backing up. Clean pocket, clean stat sheet. And yeah, it all goes back to the offensive line.
Our next rapid fire question: is this Niners roster still a contender? I'm going to reframe it this way. If the Rams can hand them a third consecutive loss with this 7-game gauntlet the San Francisco 49ers are entering, can the Rams knock them out of the postseason in October?
Yes.
Yeah.
They have a tough schedule coming forward, and you're talking about injuries piling up. I want to say they got to play the Packers again, right? They have the Packers.
Seahawks, Patriots, and that's Patriots-Seahawks game was close. That could have just been the other way too.
Right. So you have they're hanging on by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah.
I think it is getting late very early. And I know that after the game in New York with all the injuries and the complaints about the turf, you looked at it and go, well, they have Garoppolo. I'm sorry. Kyle has won with Nick Mullins and maybe just get through the schedule and then you get back healthy. But then the injuries kept piling up, right? And I think the injuries to the defensive line are the ones that people keep overlooking here. I don't think this is a playoff roster as currently constructed. I just don't. I don't think it's going to be a 2-14 here at all. But I think this team is in serious trouble. Despite, JB, your very valid point about the Rams and Niners and shared history and what this game means in the run.
He's showing respect.
No, he's right. You're absolutely right, because they are still the NFC champions until otherwise noted. And they have a heck of a coaching staff, and there's a lot of talent on this team, and it's at home. Yeah, that does matter, despite the fact that it's going to be an empty stadium and that home field advantage seemingly is gone this year statistically. It absolutely matters.
And they haven't won there this year. Like, that's, to me, this is more of like a human nature game. Like, if the Niners have any juice left to be 0-3 at home, to be in danger of losing 3 in a row, like some friends of ours, Andrew, call this the cornered animal game, right? Like, you are going to get their very best last shot.
Well, you got to go to New England and Seattle next. I mean, who put those games on a schedule back to back?
That's what happens when you win the NFC. You get that number one schedule.
Yeah, it is just brutal. And JB, Bay Area guy, looking at the look on Kyle's face last week, even under the mask, I mean, you could just see him seething and the frustration. Like, this is what it's come to. Ryan Fitzpatrick they're fake punting, and Ryan Fitzpatrick's throwing deep every play, and I've got to bench Garoppolo. Like, it just seemed rock bottom for them last week.
Uh-oh.
It's a nice beard, though. All right, we're going to close it out with fantasy picks. Before we get to everyone's pick for week 6, let's recap our picks from last weekend. JB, you had Tyler Higbee. Do we have to? It's just written in the notes here. I'm just 12 yards.
He may not have got the stats, but
it says here.
Sorry, I'll just pat myself on the back here for that one. Maurice, you had Robert Woods, 4 receptions, 71 yards, 1 touchdown. There you go. What did I give DeMarco the defense? I gave it to him. Like, I did him a favor. But all right, Andrew, I'll start with you. Who's your fantasy pick this weekend?
My fantasy pick. See, I already told you I cut Gerald Everett from my team, and I feel silly about that. So, like, I would do the classic, go sign him again and then put him in the lineup, and now he's going to do nothing. So I'm not going to. I'm going to say, I wouldn't say play him, but I have a gut feeling that Van Jefferson, who has not been on the field nearly as much as maybe we had thought, is going to do something this week. This is just a gut feeling, not a fantasy week winner for you, but I have a good Van Jefferson feeling this week.
Listen, week in and week out, I feel like I've been one of the top producers for the Rams fantasy. So when I go back and I look at –
and if you don't believe him, just ask him.
No, you got to have to. But I'm going to say Cooper Kupp. I feel like Cooper Kupp, now when you get into divisional play, he has dominated this division. And I want to say I don't know exactly how many touchdowns he has against the Niners, but in this division, he scores every time they play. So I think his ability with the banged up secondary, you got to go Cooper Kupp.
Serena, put your coffee down. Anyone who's listening, make sure you do not have a hot beverage anywhere near you. I'm about to knock you out of your chairs.
Go for it.
Samuel Sloman is my kicker to play this week in fantasy football. It is going to be his first perfect week for the Los Angeles Rams. I do not think this game will hopefully come down to a game-winning field goal attempt, but if it does, he will give some of what Robbie Gould gave the Rams back here in 2020.
Speak it into existence, my friend. Yes, sir.
Put it out there. I'm actually going to tag team with Maurice here. I think Jared Goff has a big game for himself. He has the most touchdown passes against the other team, partly because of Cooper Kupp, I'm sure, partly because of Robert Woods, I'm sure. I was actually on the fringe of picking Tyler Higbee, but I'm going to stick with Jared. I think he looks good, and I think he was excited to play in his first divisional game this season after 5 games. So they also have a dinged up secondary on the Niners. They have a concussion, a groin injury. So I'm putting my money on JG here.
I think that's a good one. That's a safe
Happy
one.
birthday, Jared, by the way.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
All right, that's a wrap for our Week 6 edition of Between the Horns. Maurice Jones-Drew, JB Long, Andrew Siciliano, thank you very much. I'm Serena Morales. Rams 49ers, Sunday night football. Drink your coffee all day long because on the West Coast, we can watch football when it's still daylight out. 5:20 Pacific on NBC. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another episode of Between the Horns.